Okay, hi everybody. Good to see you again. Today we're going to talk about Classical Illuminism and the hierarchical structure of the Akousmatikoi, the Mathematikoi, and what we will now call the Hyperboreans. We'll end with a discussion of hierarchy and whether or not hierarchy is okay, and you can identify where you fall. All right, so Akousmatikoi. As from the previous video, so these would be the lay and experts, the laymen and the experts on theory. So for example, at a high level, this would be those who can rephrase in their own words and make the case, contributing both to outreach and group cohesion in this way. So these type of people would both create material for and the performance of teaching, for example. There'd be obviously a lot of activity that expert Akousmatikoi could engage in. Lower level would generally be those who are listeners, your supporters. You may also be teachers, typically probably not a developer so much though. So the bulk of the members, this would be the sort of general or entry level Akousmatikoi, and it would not include, however, just general public, people who aren't really having an interest in this religion. One important thing to note, obviously, is that the Akousmatikoi are the bulk of the members. So obviously, there's nothing wrong or unbecoming about being Akousmatikoi or classing yourself that way. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Obviously, we totally depend, and the religion and the movement and the culture in our world is going to be made up for the large part of Akousmatikoi, who are, busy doing other things in their life, right? That's totally fine, and we totally want that, and there's nothing wrong or unbecoming about that. And if you don't feel the need to judge yourself on this scale, then you don't need to at all. It's totally fine, right? Obviously, we're going to just need people that are going about their day-to-day life generally, yes? So that would be Akousmatikoi. So Mathematikoi, this would be expert class via demonstrated practical proficiency. So for example, you will have read all of the books, certainly, but more than just having done that, you would have used the concepts of ontological mathematics to, say, solve some problem in science or religion or politics that can only be solved with ontological mathematics. You've invented something, say a technology or a new field of study or science with ontological mathematics. You've discovered a new principle of nature, a new realm of physics to explore with ontological mathematics. New territory of thought and development for and of ontological mathematics. You've substantially contributed to the advancement of Illuminism. And there will be a lot more breadth, actually, that this occupies. I think that's the next slide, actually. This would be to whom expert Akousmatikoi would generally defer for expertise and expert opinion. So Mathematikoi, how to become one. So in addition to the previous slide comments, you can, for example, there's going to be a lot of ways. My next video is going to be all about this option for those who aren't scientifically or mathematically inclined. There's lots of other ways to become a Mathematikoi. So for example, you may have created a great hymnal designed for our people and our culture. You've created plays. Perhaps you can be a great playwright. You've created art, say temples, buildings, even landscapes. Created a broad teaching curriculum for our people, our children, and our young people based on ontological mathematics and teaching these concepts and the concepts we want for our culture: beauty, truth, merit. You perhaps can create a codex, a set of laws, a way of life for our people, substantially contribute to our culture. You can create a system of mythology and legend, and certainly you can draw on the historical record that we have from the Greco-Roman and Northern European peoples. Certainly just reinvigorate those, recreate them, or just repopularize them, and do whatever else could be done with that in a positive, healthy way. So Mathematikoi structure. So this would be a round table of meritorious masters, and it would be male and female and no fixed ratio. So of course it depends on, do you want to have, say, a fixed number of Mathematikoi? Well, that requires, then a sort of council and a structure to govern who is going to be in the round table, so to speak. If you wanted to, say, have 12 or 144 or 36 or some number like that, or it could just be completely open, right? In any case, we could solve a problem like that in the future and see what's needed, what would work best. No ratio in the male and female split. Obviously, it's totally irrational. It makes no sense whatsoever. to have a fixed ratio. Say if you're going to have, say, just picking a number, 12 Mathematikoi would be the fixed number of Mathematikoi that make up the round table. It totally makes no sense whatsoever to fix the ratio and say that 6 have to be males and 6 have to be females. That's totally irrational and makes no sense whatsoever. If you can't understand how retarded that would be and how that doesn't make any sense whatsoever in the context of meritocracy, well, I don't know, you're probably a liberal. It makes no sense to fix the ratio. So this would form the seat of government. You would draw from the population of Mathematikoi, or if it was a fixed number of Mathematikoi. These would form the seat of government. These would be sort of Plato's philosopher kings. So some fixed number. That would be a question we could determine in the future. Maybe nominated. So how do you become? Well, you have to be nominated, or you can apply. And there would be some sort of period of review, say 18 months, make it take nice and long, right? So no rash decisions are made. If you are a Mathematikoi and for some reason you need to relieve yourself of your position, you can. Say if there was a fixed number of Mathematikoi, if there's a non-limited number, then this concern really isn't that important. But if there's a fixed number, it may happen that a member may want to relieve their own position for the sake of a younger, more meritorious member, for example, right? And so obviously you would need a lengthy and time-consuming process for that, just to make sure that no rash decisions are being made. So patron saint philosopher and Hyperborean would be the last level. I mentioned that in my previous video, patron saint, and I was trying to think of a better word. And I thought, well, could we just call them philosophers? Because of course, saint has too many sort of Abrahamic religious connotations, although who cares? It's just a word. So for example, you just use the definition for a saint, a person of great virtue, benevolence, quote-unquote holiness, a founder, a sponsor, or patron as a movement or organization. So that works. Obviously, philosopher, that's a word we like, a lover of wisdom. So who would comprise the sort of pantheon of patron saints, philosophers, or Hyperboreans? It would be the chain of philosophers, for example, going back to Pythagoras as founding Mathematikoi, the philosophers who contributed substantially to the chain of reasoning which led to modern ontological mathematics. Anonymous authors would be included, given the work that they have done, bringing this to the world. This is when I realized that it would be good just to call them Hyperboreans. Hyperboreans is an excellent name to call this class of people. So Mathematikoi who have passed to the land of the eternal would be as well. So we will call them Hyperboreans. Okay, we'll skip saint and philosopher, and we will use the word Hyperborean. So Hyperborean would be the members that are sort of the pantheon of quote-unquote gods, so to speak. So the pantheon of Hyperboreans. And these would be our souls, or our Mathematikoi who have gone to the land of the eternal and who have fully orthogonized their soul and monad. That's what we would say about them. They've orthogonalized their soul, their monad, and they have moved to the land of the eternal to go live with Apollo in his home of Hyperborea. Yeah? So hierarchy. So here's a question, or here was a concern. Any religion based upon hierarchies will eventually devolve into a control structure and force will eventually be used because those at the top of the hierarchy have no checks and balances stopping them from using that force. A perusal of history shows this to be true. Yeah, certainly true. I'm all for religion based upon reason, but we must use reason in getting into religion based upon reason. Okay, fine. So hierarchy is entirely natural, normal, it's meritocratic, and it can absolutely be healthy. Illuminism is 100% hierarchical in the material domain. Equality is something that's achieved at the end of time, or it may exist over in the mental domain. But it doesn't actually really exist there either, because souls are still always becoming and experiencing. That's why they reincarnate, right? So there is no actual equality that actually exists in the world. What there is merit and your ability and your progression in your cycle of reincarnations and your gnosis, right? So Illuminism is 100% hierarchical in the material domain. That reflects Gaia. All life is hierarchical. At least a lot of life is. And it's healthy. So our goal will be to ensure that we have a system of merit and striving which does not devolve to an irrational negative hierarchy, but remains a rational positive hierarchy, right? This is like negative liberty and positive liberty, right? Obviously, we want positive liberty. We want a rational positive hierarchy. And yes, certainly this is the ageless battle, and it is a challenge to fix and address and get right. as, you know, Plato discussed in the Republic, for example. So our quest is to create and to abide a religion and a culture altogether based on truth. That's the mission. Yes, it is difficult. Yes, there are pitfalls, you know, and this may affect this choice we make about the number of Mathematikoi that we want. You know, if we had a fixed council of, say, 12, well, then yes, then you get into a position where that's a small number and it can be hijacked by those with personal interests who then protect those interests with the use of force if they have access to the use of force, yes? Which likely they would, right? However, if there's an unlimited number of meritocratic Mathematikoi, then it's much harder to hijack the whole lot. So of course this goes back to the whole system of government that we're going to have. We need to think of a whole system of government, how it's regulated, what powers it has in which it can dispense and which it cannot, how grievance can be redressed and all that sort of stuff, right? And, you know, in cases of great crisis, it may be that the Mathematikoi have to be disbanded, for example. What if that happened? What if you had to disband all Mathematikoi? Then it would be up to the Akousmatikoi, the experts, to come in and reform the system. So it's not like the Akousmatikoi might not have some extremely important role in the future in some time of crisis. It may be up to the expert Akousmatikoi at some point, you know, in some scenario, to fix something if somehow, you know, there's some sort of, you know, Emperor Palpatine of the Sith operation that went on and, you know, hijacked the whole system without anybody understanding or seeing what was going on. Probability of that would be small, given our ability to see what's going on in the non-material domain, in the mental domain, yet you always have to be wary of these things. Yes? Okay. All right, so that's that. Next slide, our next show, is going to be really fun. We're going to have an introduction of some music, and we're going to discuss more about what you can do to become a Mathematikoi. If you're an Akousmatikoi and you want to become a Mathematikoi and be recorded in the annals of history of our movement and our people, we're going to discuss that, and it's going to be a lot of fun, that episode. So that's coming up next. Okay, bye-bye.